lots of interesting stuff going on. I mean, I've been spending some time thinking about like different AI projects lately. There's obviously been a lot of progress in that area. I'm close with the OpenAI folks and with some other people in the AI safety world. So yeah, that part's probably what I spend my time mostly, other than Stellar, on. So yeah.
Huge discovery when it comes to Tesla, Stellar, and even Quant. How can all three of these work together? Was there ever an official announcement? You're going to want to see the research being presented, draw your own conclusion. But for me, there's more than enough evidence to state that something is going on here. And if you hold Stellar, and especially QNT, you may want to stick around for this particular outline. Consider smashing that like if you haven't done so already. There's, of course, chapters in the description. Before we jump into the material, it is the Decent wallet. Not your keys, not your crypto. Get yourself a significant discount with the links provided in the description area that is below this video that you're watching. We'll play that and we'll come right back. If managing your crypto feels like solving a puzzle, it's time to switch to Decent Wallet. So just a few taps, you can manage, track, and secure your crypto with unmatched ease. And here's the best part. Grab your Decent wallet at a discounted price by using the referral link below. Don't miss out on making your crypto experience smoother and more secure. All right, welcome back. Let's jump into the material and why you're here.
Tesla has started building giant data centers at its gigafactories. One of these facilities is being built on the south side of the company's headquarters in Austin, Texas. The system at this complex is called Cortex, a supercomputer cluster that will run on more than 100,000 NVIDIA H100 and H200 graphics processing units, GPUs, for video training of the Optimus humanoid robots and the full self-driving.
Jec McCaleb recently posted this over on his X. How recent? Well, basically April 8th, not that long ago. He shares this, and it's from Kanjan. Who's Kanjan? Well, like it says right here, working to empower humans as machines become increasingly powerful. The CEO of imbue AI is supporting founders. Well, what exactly is this? Well, in the repost, it says today AI can generate tons of code. But how do we know if it's good? That's why we built Sculptor, the first coding agent environment. Sculptor helps you catch issues, write tests, and improve your code, all while you work in your favorite editor. As I full screen this, you see how it kind of comes together. It mentions specifically things like fixing the code. At the end of the day, it's all about automation, and if you can save coders time when it comes to just that, that could be absolutely game changer. Not have to go back in and come up with a huge update because other people found problems in the code. Well, again, fix it on the fly. That's game changer. As we get more into it, you see specifically about bugs and APIs. Now, I know I'm not talking about Quant at the moment, but even Stellar, of course, has their own API orchestration. Now, we know that when it comes to specifically Mr. Jec McCaleb, well, it's what he invested in recently, or maybe a couple years ago, because in the announcements from even TechCrunch.com, you see here, new nonprofit backed by crypto billionaire scores AI chips worth $500 million. That's $500 million. And of course, that was originally posted back in October 31st of 2023, as shown here from TechCrunch. Now, about the part of imbue, well, it says already the cluster GPUs worth an estimated $500 million and among the largest in the world. Well, that was being used by startups. imbue and Character AI for AI model experimentation, claims Eric Park, the CEO of newly formed organization Voltage Park, that's charged with running and managing the data centers. Now, this part about Voltage Park, I want you to really pay close attention to some of this, because if you have researched or just noticed in passing on some of these videos or news, you know when it comes to Optimus and Cortex, Cortex is Elon Musk's main data center for those Optimus robots, right? And it's not just Optimus, it's the brainchild behind Tesla and everything that they do within their own system. As we know, there's Google Maps. Well, Tesla, of course, has their own grid, of course, that they use for their own data and mapping and so on and so forth. Let's take you further into why you're paying attention to this all. I want to point out, again, some other key things here, and that basically is this. We mentioned Voltage Park. You go to voltagepark.com, it says specifically Voltage Park AI Cloud, world-class infrastructure and hardware, unparalleled reliability, performance and security with Tier 3 plus data centers and NVIDIA HGX H100 with 8 GPUs interconnected via NVIDIA NVLink. Now that's important, of course, to always reference some of these things. So, you know, it makes me wonder when I see some of the terminology, to say the least, like, where do we really go with this? Well, again, these are some big data centers, to say the least, and I myself, I even have a co-location in Chicago. But whatever the case be, 6 Tier 3 plus U.S. data centers, and they're, of course, strategically located across the United States. Significant uptime, redundancy, etc., etc. Now, why even bother with this? Well, as I take you over to specifically Stellar Developer Organizations developers.stellar.org documentation, remember how I talked about APIs? Well, a while back, they had an announcement in regard to specifically Horizon. Just in case you didn't know about it, you see here that Horizon provides an HTTP API to data in Stellar Network. And as you also see right here, as I blow this up for you, it mentions it ingests and reserves the data produced by the Stellar Network in a form that is easier to consume by the average application, relative to the performance-oriented data representations used by Stellar Core. This API serves as the bridge between apps and Stellar Core. Projects, and listen to this, like wallets, decentralized exchanges, and asset issuers use Horizon to submit transactions, query, an account balance, or stream events like transactions to an account. Now, this is where it gets somewhat juicy. And as we click into this, it's the whole thing of, for example, Tesla. For one, look what it says here, according to Grok. It says Tesla's Stellar Horizon is a project that aims to tokenize Tesla's innovations and products on the Stellar blockchain. Interesting. Enabling fractional ownership and trading of assets tied to Tesla's technology. Well, according to the project website, it focuses on tokenizing assets such as Tesla, Robotaxi, Cybercab, and Cybertruck, allowing investors to engage with Tesla's electric vehicles, autonomous ride-sharing, and, of course, sustainable energy solutions through the Stellar blockchain's decentralized exchange. All right, wow. And how about this? You know, I cover Jasmine quite a bit. We talk about, for example, data democratization, maybe monetizing some of that. The purpose of Tesla Stellar Horizon is to democratize access to Tesla's advancements by tokenized assets. Tokenizing them, I should say. Enabling fractional ownership. This allows individuals to invest in or trade digital tokens representing portions of Tesla's products or innovations. But more importantly, through Stellar Horizon, I think this is something that really flew under the radar. Maybe some people covered it. Hey, awesome. I'm going to expand upon that. And as I do, I'm going to take you over to here. Back to the whole thing of Voltage Park. It's the infrastructure. Again, the whole thing of world-class infrastructure and hardware. Like I pointed out earlier, the whole thing of what you see here in regards to NVIDIA and whatnot. Now, we're going to get into the weeds about why that's important, but again, as I pull this up, I want you guys to see some other key things here about recent announcements from Voltage Park. So there's numerous sources about this. For one, Voltage Park acquires TensorDock, expanding GPU cloud servers for AI and machine learning. don't forget about the part about AI and machine learning, because when we get more into this whole thing, again, you even see on the second link that GPU as a service provider, Voltage Park acquires GPU cloud marketplace TensorDock. Again, back to that other publication we just recently shared. As I pull up more information about this, you will see here on this particular link from AIauthority.com, well, again, it's the terminology. As I zoom in, it states here that you will see this whole thing about acquisition. And it talks about specifically this. The acquisition bolsters Voltage Park's position in the rapidly growing AI infrastructure market, expanding GPU availability, of course, for innovators, enterprises, and nonprofits. It's a strategic move, but enhances AI infrastructure offerings. Voltage Park is a scalable GPU as a service with on-demand and reserved bare metal AI infrastructure. Today, at least then I should say, announced the acquisition of TensorDock, a leading GPU cloud marketplace. Don't forget these terms about cloud marketplace. You'll see why. So they have a mission to democratize AI by delivering GPU cloud solutions for innovators and businesses of every size. Okay, that's really, really worth noting, right? So to take you further into this, I want you guys to see, again, some of these other key things. So for one, I didn't realize it. Michael Lewan, if I'm pronouncing your name right, you tagged me a while back, and a lot of people tag me, so I apologize if I don't get into every single one. But he tagged me about this one in regard to TechCrunch. And actually, before I even got into this outline, I didn't realize, again, this was from a while back. So originally, he sends this to me January 25th, and he even states here, Crusoe, a rumored AI or OpenAI data center, I should say, supplier, has secured $686 million in new funds. Filing shows. Why is this important? Again, that little intro at the beginning, remember what Jec McCaleb mentioned specifically about OpenAI? Yeah, you're going to see how this all comes together. And I think, again, I don't know if enough people are talking about it. I don't really know if anybody's talking about it, and that's okay. If people are, awesome. But I didn't see anything personally. So take you into the next particular part of the outline. It says here on TechCrunch.com, again, Crusoe Energy started building data centers, reportedly to be released to Oracle. Here is the what, everybody? Here's the Quant connection. Microsoft and OpenAI is in the process of raising $818 million according to that SEC filing. The filing indicates that Crusoe has secured $686 million of the $818 million total that it hopes to raise. 70 investors have contributed to the tranche so far per the filing. All right. Again, why point some of these things out? Well, check this out. Boil it, mash it, stick it in stew. When we see here the whole thing of how this comes together with Quant's Overledger, with PipeDream integration, you see that you can choose an API to connect with Overledger API, and you have support for two particular things with OpenAI. The one on the left, which shows OpenAI with ChatGPT, and the one on the right that shows Azure OpenAI Service. Let's jump into that, because again, as you see here, it's an integration of the Overledger API with the Azure OpenAI Service API. You can set up Overledger API triggers to run a workflow which integrates with the Azure OpenAI Service. Azure, Microsoft Azure, everybody. PipeDream's integration platform allows you to integrate Overledger and Azure OpenAI Service remarkably fast. Free, of course, for developers. Now, on this is 3 lines of code, but we also know that there's making integration, which has the whole thing as 0 lines of code, and also Zapier. As you see here, you may be wondering, well, Max, does it have any smart contract functionality? Of course, the answer is yes, but I always like to cite this, because as you see, new smart contract events, you see, for example, new smart contracts instantaneously through various forms of orchestration, but again, service API on new smart contract events and how it all comes together, especially as you see here. Even executing some of those signed transactions. Of course, we know that Quant can basically switch to things like XRP for real-time gross settlements. And how do we know that? In the discovery phase, with the test, with the pilots that was reported from the RSN, the Regulated Settlement Network. So to me, this is another example of how this all comes together. It's other ecosystems working together. Call it workflow, no pun intended. To take you more into this, I want to point out some other things. So I don't have a mind map, and I just downloaded one from Rue Black. Shout out to him, he's been making excellent mind maps. Well, this one kind of gives you a breakdown. Because remember how we mentioned the whole thing of Quant Network and Oracle? Here's an example of a ASCII mind map, simplified. You see Oracle at the top of that branch. You see how it connects, obviously, to Quant Network. Then you see how Quant Network connects you to a global startup ecosystem, and it shows back in 2019. Then solidified this year, Oracle Blockchain Platform. Then you see Overledger certification, and of course things like projects such as Project Roslyn, the Regulated Liability Network, and so on. Well, what about JPMorgan? Because we know that Oracle does the orchestration, but the infrastructure for JPMorgan is part of its ecosystem. JPMorgan, of course, connects to Oracle. Oracle, of course, has the whole thing with Quant. With what? Overledger infrastructure. So it's interesting to see how this all comes together. And of course, what it says for JPMorgan, embedding banking, cloud ERP. That part where it says cloud ERP, I want you to pay close attention to that terminology as well. Because as we take you more into it, well, we also know when it comes to it all, Oracle has this whole thing of human capital management. Oracle Fusion Cloud HCM, making an API call. Well, again, why in the world would we want to point this out? And more importantly, would this actually connect to things like the Overledger from Quant? And the answer basically is is yes. We see here that you can basically create an API call. You can also create a smart contract. You can make a transaction. It's all there. It talks to each other. And we could connect other things to this. Well, what about this? Some of you guys are going to ask this. Here's a common question. And that is, does Oracle Fusion Cloud, because I showed that example with Make, work with JPMorgan? And look at this, plain as day. Yes, Oracle Fusion Cloud ERP does work with JPMorgan Payments through a suite of what? Boil it, mash it, stick it in a stew. Of integrations and embedded services. These integrations streamline banking processes within the Oracle Cloud ERP system, including automating banking connections, simplifying reconciliation, and providing access to real-time bank balances. That is the plug. That is the connect to JPMorgan. That is no longer speculative. We connected the dots with that. And this part, as you see towards the bottom, integrated banking for Oracle Fusion ERP does what? It empowers JPMorgan and Oracle clients with a comprehensive 360-degree view of their financial position, enabling effective day-to-day business finance operations. That's major. That's huge. Let's take it to this next part, because I mentioned the whole thing of TensorDock. Well, their mission is to scale globally, up to 30,000 GPUs available through their close partners, including 45 different models to fit any workload and budget. Take advantage of their consumer GPUs such as RTX 4090, which I would love to have one of those because I'm a gamer myself, and a 3090 for up to 5x inference value. I'm saying Ference a lot. Shout out to Ference F in their community. I know you're big on Stellar, but shout out to you, brother. This one isn't XRP, and I know you're more bullish on Stellar, and that's okay. Hundreds of GPUs ready to deploy on our dashboard at any time, distributed across 100+ locations in over 20 countries. Like it says, scale now. But if you get more into it, an API you can depend on, well-documented, well-maintained, well-everything. Well-everything, to me, means things like an API everything, hence the Overledger. Let's take you further into why this matters. Well, let's take you over to Reuters. Reuters mentions specifically in the research dating back to October 30th, 2023, that crypto billionaires nonprofit buys 500 million of AI data center chips. Who would it be? Well, I think you know who it's going to be, basically. And that is the one and only, the legend, the myth, Jec McCaleb. And like it says here, Cryptocurrency billionaire Jec McCaleb bought roughly 500 million of those NVIDIA advanced chips and plans to lease computing capacity to companies for artificial intelligence projects. I'm telling you flat out, call it speculative, call it whatever you want, but if you have chosen to continue with this outline, you'll be so glad that you did. Because in my hypothesis, I think there's something here. So many people say it was through VAST. I think it's not just VAST, everybody. I think the connection with Jec McCaleb and Elon Musk and potentially Stellar is more than meets the eye. It is more than just VAST. I think this is more of the supreme plug for Stellar moving forward. How so? Well, again, when we look more into Optimus and we look more into Cortex, that data center, this all matches up. And I'll show you a little bit more about this, because when you see statements of the AI cloud computing organization called Voltage Park, and we know that he basically funded some of this, well, they have 24,000 NVIDIA H100 chips. And again, that's a big, big deal. All right, why is it a big deal? Well, look what it says from Voltage Park. Voltage Park clusters are already servicing exciting AI companies. Those include, back to the beginning of the outline, boil it, mash it, stick it in the stew once again, imbue. And they're finalizing clusters for other AI leaders like Character AI and Atomic AI. And they expect the remaining to come online by early next year. All right, let's get into the weeds about some of this. Character AI, according to research.character.ai, mentions that they design its model architecture, inference stack, and product from the ground up, enabling unique opportunities to optimize inference to the more efficient, cost-effective, and scalable, rapidly growing global audience. Today, they serve more than 20,000 inference queries per second. And here, everybody, listen to this. To put this into perspective, this is roughly 20% of the request volume served by Google Search, which processes around 105,000 queries per second, according to third-party estimates. That's big. What about scalability, though? We can sustainably serve LLMs as this scale because we have developed a number of key innovations across our serving stack. Okay, who would be that stack? Who would be that architecture, and how do we get this to all come together, to say the least? Well, you're more than welcome to take more of your own deep dive into it all, but I thought I would jump into the next part, because the next part we bring up is what? Atomic AI. AI-driven RNA drug discovery with atomic precision. At Atomic AI, they're harnessing cutting-edge machine learning and structural biology to unlock the next generation of RNA-targeted small molecule and RNA-based medicines. Even with Quant Network, we know that Gilbert Verdian's wife, Laura Verdian, is very, very deeply connected into the whole health industry. This gets good, because when you jump more into the whole thing, well, what about the concept, again, of health? Well, again, I'm not trying to make this divisive, because I know you guys are not biggest fans at CDC, and hey, I get it. But you see here integration with the CDC, with the Quant over Ledger. You see Microsoft Azure API for FHIR, which is Managed Standards-Based and Healthcare Data Platform. You have Clinico, Health Practice Management Software. You have Enigma, which provides fresh, accurate data about the identity and so on, hence quantum digital IDs and whatnot, right? I know. Some of you guys aren't fans of that, but I'm just pointing some research out. You have Google Fit. You have some of these other ones, but constant references. And what about even HIPAA? Because we know HIPAA laws will take into effect towards the bigger picture of Web3 moving forward and so on. And you see half through AI, HIPAA compliant AI tools. Quant integration with all this? Wow. Really, really well worth pointing out, to say the least. So I'm going to jump back into some of these things. Back to Atomic AI, back to the technology. You see, removing a key barrier to unlock the full potential of RNA. Okay, wow, interesting. And what's really interesting is when you see that they highlight this magazine about the lifelong effects of prenatal infections, science, how it all comes together. Pay attention to some of the visuals that you see here. Why? Like it says, it's a winning solution. Artificial intelligence reveals RNA structure. Very, very interesting. All right. Well, I decided to get into the PDF about this. Machine learning solves RNA puzzles. Molecules fold into complex three-dimensional shapes. that are difficult to determine experimentally or predict computationally. Understanding structures may aid in the discovery of drugs for currently untreatable diseases. Okay, well, there's a lot when it comes to this, right? But whatever the case be, when I got further into this, it led me down the rabbit hole of this. And that basically is, what does RNA stand for in machine learning? In the context of machine learning, RNA refers to ribonucleic acid. That basically is a crucial molecule in biological systems. It plays a vital role in converting genetic information from DNA to proteins, and machine learning techniques, which are increasingly used to analyze and predict RNA structure, function, and interactions. Now, I will state this, and I'll point out some examples. There has been numerous people that said, look, even in Bitcoin, right? Or I should say BTC, excuse me. In BTC, like Michael Saylor, pointing out, like, if we could just harness DNA and put it on blockchain, that would be like super major, because when we know when it comes to DNA, well, geez, I mean, you can store an insane amount of data, right, on a single DNA strand and whatnot. So how can you have that represented? Well, that's where we're going with this. So as I jump further down to this, I want to share this with you, because again, it's the whole thing of this being a molecule found in all living organisms and viruses. The RNA plays a crucial role in carrying out the instructions of protein synthesis. Unlike DNA, which is a double-stranded molecule, RNA is typically single-stranded. Weird. Interesting. Well, look at this. Is it possible that, like I mentioned, we could take DNA and put it in blockchain? Well, I said yes, but I just want to show you some proof. Yes, it's possible to store DNA data on blockchain. Several companies and research groups are exploring and implementing this technology for various applications, including digital identity. And let's face it, Quant really does stand out when it comes to that, especially when it comes to patents and standards. All right, secure data storage. So back to the whole thing that we shared about Oracle, and the whole thing of, we saw with the connection with JPMorgan, and like I said, personalized medicine. That's incredibly interesting because, again, back to Quant, blockchain storage, digital representation can be stored on the blockchain, which is a decentralized immutable ledger. How many times does Gilbert Verdian reference the whole thing of a future-proof, trusted, with value, immutable ledger? Right. And as I take you to this, it's this piece, and I listened to a whole hour of this. I hope you guys appreciate me just jump into some of it. Some of you guys, again, you want the 15 minutes. I mean, it is what it is. I am who I am, but whatever the case be. In this case study from Stanford, okay, Unlocking RNA Universe, Raphael Townshend, who, by the way, has his PhD, mentions this key thing. I'm going to play it for you. This came out basically 2 years ago, but it really pounds home all the research. Listen to this. We'll come back here shortly. Here we go.
AlphaFold, which some of you may have heard about in the last couple of years, and was actually considered the breakthrough of the year in 2021 in science. And to justify this very quickly, right, the fundamental task that we were working on in this case is one known as structure prediction in this case. So you're going from a 1D sequence, in this case an amino acid sequence that forms a protein, and you're predicting a full three-dimensional structure, okay? The full 3D shape this molecule adopts in your cells. And again, we care about that because the shape of something is important to what it does. And, once you understand these shapes, you can better cure diseases. Now, this is a really important problem for a number of reasons, and the entire field of structural biology has been trying to solve it for many years. And the classic way of doing this are through these experimental wet lab techniques. For example, X-ray crystallography, which I'm showing one of the machines down here. This is actually the SLAC linear accelerator, which has been converted to one of these machines and is, basically a $1 billion machine to solve this mapping here in the top right. And so that's great when you can use them, but it's obviously quite expensive and quite slow. A good friend of mine did his entire PhD solving a single one of these mappings for his entire PhD. And that was considered a huge success overall. And so really the dream of AlphaFold was, hey, can we learn this mapping instead with the right sort of algorithmic techniques? And fundamentally what AlphaFold is really it's a large language model at the end of the day. It's consuming basically this one-dimensional sequence, going through a number of different embeddings here, the details of which perhaps don't matter so much. And then you end up with this sort of trunk overall, which is really just a bunch of different attention layers, sort of learning more about, these sequences. And at the end of the day, you can do both sort of masked language models, right? But you can also predict other very interesting quantities, for example, the pairwise distance between any two amino acids in this three-dimensional structure. But on top of that, you really end up with these embeddings that are usable in many different contexts beyond even simply predicting structures.
Okay, so there's a lot that needs to be mentioned, and of course this is over an hour, but he talks about structures, and I know I'm getting really deep into this, but I wanted you guys to pay attention to when he mentions specifically like language models, machine learning. How does it all come together? Why would they want to bother making DNA to be represented on chain? Think about it. Data, lots of data. Lots of data is supposed to be stored on chain that has value. Again, where are we going with this? Well, as I pull up more information about why you're listening to this outline, I want to point out this. And it's interesting. This came up, of course, recently in news. I know it's kind of controversial, but whatever the case be, the ancient pyramids, coils, below the surface. Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of news outlets are covering this. It's not just the whole conspiracy crowd, right? Whatever the case be, recent radar imaging studies suggest the discovery of massive interconnected structures beneath the Giza pyramids, including cylindrical shafts, spiral paths, and massive chambers. These structures are believed to extend over 2,000 feet below the ground and potentially linked to rooms and wells. While these findings have not been fully verified, they have sparked considerable debate, speculation on what lies beneath the pyramids. I'm telling you flat out, when I use the analogy, even when it comes to quant, shout to tokenizer. How many times have we mentioned specifically quant so much more than CBDCs, right? It's like, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I think it'll be common, in my opinion, could be wrong, maybe 20 years from now it'll take this long to be a statement. But if we're going to say the expression of that's just the tip of the iceberg, I think at some point the new expression will be that's just the tip of the pyramid. Think about this. New radar imaging research suggests a 2-kilometer underground complex beneath the Giza pyramids featured interconnected chambers, spiraling wells. Again, spiraling wells. I think that's interesting. Theories like this aren't new. Inventor Nikola Tesla, think about that, once speculated that the pyramids might collect and harness Earth's natural energy. I personally believe that's the reason why he was there too. I know you may feel like I'm diverting things, but I feel as though there's so much here when it comes to all of the bigger picture, the visuals, the explanations, the deep, concrete research, okay? Let's take you further into this. As we see here, again, with some of the visuals, well, what do you see? Again, it's what's underneath that. And I think that is just unbelievable, right? And of course, we'll find out what, unfolds. But those coils and how it's wrapped around like that, something's there. Energy, I don't know. But whatever the case be, let's get back on topic when it comes to crypto and so on, right? So what you see here is from Denelle Dixon interviewing the one and only, the myth, the legend, Jec McCaleb, an innovator's journey, insights on blockchain space, exploration, and the AI impact. We'll jump into the point. Listen to what he has to say when she asks him a little bit about the whole thing of AI. We'll come right back here in a bit. Here we go.
We had this conversation not that long ago where we talked about why there's this difference in terms of acceptance or difference in terms of how regulators have approached blockchain versus artificial intelligence. Do you have a sense as to why you think that it seems like artificial intelligence is kind of accepted by the regulators as something that's going to be powerful and potentially good? And they haven't tried to restrict it or to regulate it out of existence, which some say that's what's happening in blockchain. Do you have a sense as to why that might be?
Yeah, I mean, There's already a lot of existing regulations that touch upon like the things that blockchain touches on. Like, there's tons of regulation around money, movement of money, and like all this kind of stuff. And so, there's already kind of a framework that it can kind of fit into or worry people, right? And whereas with AI, it's like very new, and it's there's no precedent for it, and it's just strange, and people aren't sure what's going to happen. Whereas, if you explain what like blockchain can do, where hey, you can move money instantly to all these people get that, and there's like clear worries that arise from that, and so I think that's basically why it's AI is just like further out of like distribution for what these people are used to regulating, right? So
yeah, I think that's a good part of it. I also think that we talk about AI as if AI is an industry, and I think of AI really as that tech that's going to be in every industry. And so there's a little bit of differentiation there, because really with blockchain, you can use it for a lot of different things, but for the most part, the focus is on the financial industry.
Right.
And so I think that's probably right in terms of how we think those things through. So
there's also the consumer element. I mean, lots of like individual people are like, giving money to these weird things like FTX or whatever, right? And so like there's people are actually losing money or like gaining crazy amounts of money, right? So that part gets like all the consumer protection stuff engaged. So
any comments you want to make on the OpenAI drama?
I don't know. It's super confusing. I don't know. I mean, I don't really have any more insight than other folks, but it seemed wild.
It was a roller coaster, for that weekend to see how that was going to end up. In terms of the working with respect to space and thinking about like the regulation and the technology and how that's being received, how do you feel about that to date?
I mean, it's another one of these areas where it's brand new. I mean, there's never been a commercial station before, so there isn't a lot of regulation around it yet. So, I mean, I think it's similar to both crypto and AI stuff, where just hopefully the regulators aren't going to because they can always just kind of squash these kind of nascent things if they take a heavy-handed approach. So hopefully they're pretty permissive about what people can do up there and how this evolves, and kind of wait to see kind of thing. So, but
how do you find it to date? Like in terms of what you guys are doing, have you found that, I know there already are regulations that apply to a lot of the work that you guys are jumping in on, but do you feel like there's a more of a restrained approach?
No, I mean, there's export regulations that like all aerospace stuff has, that we fall under, things like that. But those are, mostly that just means you can only work with U.S. citizens. But yeah, I mean, the stuff where like, actually people in orbit, I mean, a lot of this is kind of still remains to be seen. There's like licenses you have to get from like various organizations, but so far it seems like I'm definitely way less worried about it than I was during crypto times. So, like that stuff was way more uncertain than this. Like this seems fairly clear what we need to do. So
yeah, that's interesting.
Yes, all of it is extremely interesting. Let's take you further into this. This is something that gets brought up, and that is AGI. Lots of talk about AI, but what about AGI? Well, AGI, or Artificial General Intelligence, refers to a hypothetical type of AI that possesses human-like intelligence. Think about that. Is this what Elon Musk and the Optimism robots basically have? I should say Optimus robots have? Could very well be, but it's a capability of understanding and learning any intellectual task as a human can. All right. Wouldn't that require things like RNA? Possibly. I don't know. I have to look more into that. But it's a theoretical goal, not yet achieved, that envisions machines with reasoning, problem solving, perception, and language comprehension abilities comparable to or surpassing human cognitive capabilities. My goodness. Some people, of course, worry about if this stuff turns into Skynet and whatnot. I'm not saying it will, but that's incredibly interesting to say the least. A little bit more about this and why you're listening. AGI, sometimes called human level intelligence, like it says, Others maintain genuine AGI has not been achieved. AGI conceptually can distinct from artificial superintelligence, which would outperform the best human abilities across every domain by a wide margin. My goodness. Is this why we are talking about the whole thing of universal basic income and whatnot? Because let's face it, these robots, Microsoft's Bill Gates has pointed out, there won't be doctors in the future and whatnot. It sounds pretty doom and gloom. But remember back to the whole beginning of this video? Yeah, beginning of the video, I shared with you the whole thing about OpenAI, what you heard from Jec McCaleb. It says here, creating AGI is a primary goal of AI research and of the companies such as OpenAI, Google, and Meta. 2020 survey identifies 72 active AGI research and development projects across 37 countries. All right, that's still quite a bit, is it not? Absolutely. Well, let's jump into a little bit more about this. And this is, again, where it gets interesting, because everybody wants to know if Elon Musk and Jec McCaleb ever met. Well, a post from 2023 claimed Musk and McCaleb were scheduled to meet on August 7th, 2023, but this was not corroborated by reputable sources and remains inconclusive. I couldn't find anything really more about it, but we do know that there's a common thing when it comes to VAST and SpaceX, so there is that, right? And that's, of course, a common thing, common knowledge. But again, I thought I'd get more into this because this is where, this, in my opinion, will really open your eyes. Look at the timestamp. August 7, 2023, from Elon Musk. What does it state? He says, quote, I think we may have figured out some aspects of AGI. What in the world? Call that, my head is about to explode. The car has a mind, not erroneous mind, but a mind nonetheless. What in the world? Call that a giant coincidence? Call that whatever you want. He posts that the same date, and here we are talking about all this stuff with AI and AGI and the possible stellar connection. Call it coincidence, but oh man, that, in my opinion, is more than coincidence. All right, as we know, and AI, and I've covered this in the past, is integrated, of course, with Stellar. And of course, here it is. Well, why even point that out? You're just trying to find some things that just mention AI and Stellar. Well, a little bit, but again, this is why I referenced it. April 29th, 2019. Elon Musk kind of jokes around. He just posts Ethereum. That's all he posts. He just says Ethereum. Well, and AI responds to him and says, hey, Elon, what's the next coin? Be careful. It'll pump. All right. Who joins the conversation? Yeah, that's right. Our beloved fearless leader, Gilbert Verdian. Elon, we are 20 plus years security veterans and built an operating system called Overledger that connects 7 blockchains with just 3 lines of code. As we know now, it's no lines of code when it comes to Make and Zapier integration, but 3 lines, of course, with PyDream. Benefit from all DLTs, for example, that are incorporated in Ethereum. Teslas, see how you mentioned Teslas, can also talk to any other car or device on different blockchains and legacies. Let's chat. Yeah, absolutely. Well, what's an example that we can reference here? Well, for one, SpaceX. And I've shared this before, but I realize there's new people. If you do SpaceX on make.com, it has little things here. Search capsules, sorry. You see get company info, search from the course, search from the crews, find a crew member, search from the Dragon rockets. You can list all the rockets, the launch pads, you name it. But whatever the case be, payloads, you can search, for example, specific ships, satellites even for Starlink, and of course make an API call. Now, really interesting because, again, you get further into it, that API call, what is it going to call? The Overledger to do what? Prepare a smart contract transaction. That's always been interesting. Whatever the case be. I don't see a lot of other projects doing stuff like this. Interesting. And again, why is it interesting? Well, another connection. Like we point out before, and again, if you're new to my channel, this is why we point these things out. What about XAI? Make an API call, Overledger. So you not just checkmark 1 with Starlink, checkmark 2 with XAI, again with Overledger. Well, this is another one I found interesting. This doesn't have to do with X, but it says Emporix Orchestration Engine. And again, with the Overledger. Who are they? This gets incredibly interesting because like it says here, if you go over to emporix.com, transform your commerce processes, adapt with flexibility, automate efficiently, and accelerate success. And here's the aha moment as far as they're concerned, because they are a commerce orchestration platform. Optimize and automate your commerce processes with the only commerce platform that offers an AI-driven, no-code environment for ultimate flexibility. That's interesting, and to especially see that integrated with Quant's Overledger platform, because if anything, if Elon Musk wanted some kind of example of, you're really doing something with anything that's AI-driven, the answer is yes. Well, how's it orchestrated? Boom, here you go. As we get into the next part, power your digital ecosystem by API-first e-commerce architecture. Who would that be? Obviously, it's the Quant network. So there's that. All right, jumping back to why you're looking into this. Is there any source whatsoever about Quant network and Stellar other than like maybe a visual? Did they ever mention it? Well, according to Grok, nothing. Nothing except for this. And I was so glad that I was able to find this, even without doing a search. Quant Network, of course, banned me from the Wayback Time Machine. I had to get more creative. I'm never going to stop, okay? So, in this citation, you see here, how far back does it go? June 8th, 2021, about the mid-year technology update, at least at that time. You see here, specifically, the mention of Stellar. And it was with the Enterprise Network update at that time. So you saw, for example, pre-release, Fiat Treasure, BTC, Ethereum, XRP, and then you see about the part about 1.02 DLN update, R3 Corda, and then right below that, part of 1.03 DLN update, you see plain as day Stellar. That is the plug. That is the connect. We have established that. Let's take it into the next part. Gilbert Verdian points out in August 12th of 2023, okay, that, like he says, come on, Elon Musk, it's about time to sort out bots. Gosh, how many times, like how many fake Maximus crypto accounts have you guys seen? I apologize for that. I always report them. If you see them on X, report them. Help me out. But where the case be, I would agree. They can freely register fake accounts, monitor keywords, and post in seconds with no consequences. Deter bad actors and bad behavior by increasing the cost of their actions. Increase the steps and costs to onboard authentic real humans versus bots. Verify the role. Authorize. Authorize. Remember Quant came out with Quant Authorize? Think about how it all comes together, everybody. This is why we do these deep dives together. Number 3, add a cost to post, time, effort, or money, transaction fees, credits. You're moving X to payment network. Time for participants to act like they are on one. Yes, absolutely. Now here's the thing. I did a piece about this a while back. Make integration. Overledger talking to, for example, X, right? To create a smart contract event. Okay, so I have a video. You guys can watch it. I just took a little, short little screenshot here, as you can see. Here's the key thing, though. If you go to make.com and you try to see the whole thing with X, it's been wiped. It's no longer there. You say XAI, you see, for example, SpaceX, but as far as specifically payment rails on X, that has been wiped. Is it because all of a sudden there's NDAs? I don't know where the case be, but I do know this. I was so glad that I covered this in the past, because on the very top, as you see here, what does it say where I'm pointing? Integration, Overledger, payment rails, and X, formerly Twitter. And we show that. You can watch that video. It's going to be at the very end of this video. So really, really interesting to see how this all comes together, because people want to see if there's anything established with the whole possibility of X and payments. I think with Quant, it'll be a one-stop shop for Elon Musk, because we know that, okay, hey, Mr. Musk, you want to, settle with Ripple XRP? This can switch to XRP. You want to do trade finance with XDC? It can switch to XDC. You want to do some of these other ones for whatever reason, Ethereum? You can switch to Ethereum. Heck, you could switch to Polygon. You could switch to anything for the most part. Really, really interesting. All right. A little bit more from Gilbert Verdian. People have been talking about AI a lot recently. Heck, the whole point of this video, right? One of the barriers to trusted AI is the ability to trust and share learnings securely and confidentially without the need to copy mass amounts of data into a single data store. Blockchain can be used as a layer of trust to interconnect and overlay different data stores to share the learning securely and confidentially, trusting the other party's integrity while automating governance between models. For example, swarm learning, a decentralized AI approach that unites edge computing, P2P, and coordination. It says here, Eng Lim Go from HPE, which by the way is the official X of Hewlett Packard Enterprise and the global edge to cloud company. I had a friend back in the day that had a Hewlett Packard PC. Heck, I even have an HP laptop. It's not functional because it's kind of old. It's my old school laptop from many years ago. But whatever the case be, they're a big name. But at least during the time Gilbert posted this, they presented at Sibos, because you got to keep in mind, Sibos is the whole thing of what Swift literally hosts. And it's what they did with blockchain and AI and what? Healthcare. See how this all adds up? A lot of you guys clicked off and I get it. A lot of people just want the quick 5 minutes. Whatever the case be, shout out to you guys that want to learn about the connections. So he has a blog post, and if anything, look what it shows here in regard to specifically technologies and how they progressed about trusted AI. And like it shows here, share learnings, swarm learning, peer-to-peer, private blockchain, states back to 2022. And again, you see kind of how it's all orchestrated. You know, I wish I could have zoomed in a little bit more there, but it is what it is. Take it further into this. Remember how he was talking about Eng Lim Go? He states, when it comes to blockchain, we must balance access with security. During the HPED Discover, he had a chance to discuss the basics of distributed ledgers and how hashing is preventing the tampering of pages and blocks. Watch below. This is an excellent explanation. People really enjoyed what he said. Yeah, it dates back to 2019, but it's not time sensitive. Listen to this, draw your own conclusion. I'm telling you, this is pretty good. Here we go.
This is a ledger. It has every transactions. Tom paid Jim 10 bitcoins. Sarah paid Tom 2 bitcoins, right? Typically, one person holds this ledger, and this person is in charge. What we want to do, instead of a centralized ledger, is to do a distributed ledger where everybody gets a copy of this ledger using the internet. Those who want to participate, you get a copy. The only problem is, number one, what happens if someone tries to tamper with one item in that ledger, because everybody gets a copy? Well, we use an ID method where we compute everything in this page to create a unique ID on top. Anyone tampers with this, the ID changes. So every page is a block. The next page is the next block. The next page is the next block. And then the binder is the chain. Blockchain. Yeah? All right? Anti-tampering because of the ID called hash. If you want to know more, look up what hash is. Important in computer science. The beauty about hash is it computes everything, consumes everything on that page, and it creates a unique ID. Anyone touches anything in there, the ID changes. Then who decides to add a new page? Who is responsible for adding a new page? They have a puzzle that everybody competes to solve. The first one to solve it is responsible for adding that new page, and is rewarded by new Bitcoin.
If that isn't one of the best analogies of what blockchain is, I don't know what is. Anyway, thought I'd share with you guys. Thought was really, really cool. We're almost done. Gilbert Verdian, once again, back to August 6, 2017. Artificial Intelligence Explained. An excellent overview of the components that make AI. So, let's jump into it. As you see here, he cites Scoro. This is one of the only examples I've ever seen where he shares something in regard to like integration. Okay, so it says boost cross-team collaboration. Unite your teams on a single work management platform to break down silos. How many times does he talk about we need to get rid of the walled gardens and the silos and make them interoperable? Keep all project-related info at everybody's fingertips and promise visibility across teams from sales to discovery to accounting. Save hours by eliminating the need for manual stats, updates, and handover meetings. All right, why am I sharing this with you? Well, if you watched my previous video recently about Quant, I pointed out my hypothesis, did I not, about how Quant is literally not just about CBDCs and API everything, right? But did I not state that Quant is literally CRM for blockchain? Well, boil it, mash it, stick it in a stew. What do you see here? Looks like old Max was right. Project management, quoting and budgeting, and sales and CRM. Manage customer accounts and track pipeline. See how it all comes together? I think you do. So there you have it, everybody. I think there's some big things that are there clearly. So do me a favor, if you listen to the entire outline and type in this key term into the comments, and that is stellar quant AI. I'll know that you listen to the entire outline. As the saying goes, know what you have, know why you hold it. The research trumps FUD 110%. We'll see you on the next one.
Do we live in a simulation? Probably not, but it is an imitation. The boundary has lifted and there isn't limitation. Technology insists to deliver stimulation. Augmented pixels, vivid integration. We've traded our emotions for digital elation. Where you're present in containment. Could be sitting in your basement and living in a matrix at the same time. Hidden like Malaysian Airlines, obliviously taken. Can we use this for the base without giving it to Satan? The App Store logo is the symbol of the Masons. Is this even freedom or is it information? How different is your brain to what's written in a paper? Intelligence evolving, artificially created in a singularity. Training algorithms for persuasion. Conditions will remain in a sticky situation. No vision for a change, only silly conversations. Political debates while they fiddle with your data. Then you pity me a fake, phony missionary statements. Whether Christian or pagan or Hinduism is your favorite. Religion is a way of belittling a nation. And this is just the basics. Is it a conspiracy to state the president's a snake? Or a lizard with a face and any minute he could change? It's difficult to say, but there's unlimited mistakes, and I'm a little bit sick of it today. So I'm sitting here awake inside the pressures in societies. Depression with anxieties, they messing with your mind, it's the stress and no variety. A devil in disguise, you see the redness in your eyes while your head is in the skies. You've never been a liar, but they questioning your life like you've never been alive.